arrived finally on thank you very much. Unfortunately, we only lack my grandchildren, Kate, who is in South America, Peru or somewhere, and Alison and Harriet, unfortunately, they have work commitments and so can't be with us tonight. I have made a note or two here which is going to bore you to death, but I was reading a book about Picasso, and he said that age only matters when one is aging.
Yes.
Now that I have arrived at a great age, I might just as well be 20.
Exactly.
As it happens, I have had only 20 birthdays. So I am 20 and I can now be totally irresponsible.
Oh, really?
So this is it. You never expect to have to be 80, and but here it is. It's the big one. It's not 70 years and 10 as in the Bible. It is 80 years. It's been a good innings, they say, or it's been a long spell, a fair stint, a big stretch, a life sentence. However, page 2. Actually, people have described me in various ways and using all sorts of words. I'm called old, ancient, of advanced years, antique, antiquarian, of historical interest, veteran, vintage, venerable, time-worn, prehistoric.
No, not prehistoric.
I am actually getting on in years of ripe old age, long in the tooth, wizened, decrepit, doddering, senile,
Yes, yes.
gaga,
Yes, yes. No.
seen better days.
Well.
Well, not all at once, you can take a pick. But one thing is, there's no escaping it, it's inevitable. Seriously though, I've had a very good life, I have to say.
Yes.
And I've done some things that I've been proud of and others not so proud of. But I have enjoyed my life. And I have had many good friends, and I have been sustained, as you can imagine, by my lovely wife.
Perfect wife.
She's a perfect wife, because frankly, without her,
You wouldn't be here today.
I'm incapable. I go around nowadays dropping things. And in fact, I'm too old to pick them up. So I rely on her and also I break maybe 3 wine glasses per week.
That's okay.
What I do is, when I've broken a glass and it's not there, I sweep it all up carefully, and I look around and check everything. And then I'm going, and she'll come in and say, "What is this?" "Broken glass." And I have to confess that without her, I'd be walking around with bleeding feet. I was brought up in Scotland, so I'm Scottish and proud of that, but I left Scotland when I was about, I don't know, Alison, 14?
I was 5 and you were
about 9 or 10. We left just before the war, in fact. We went to England, and
That was during the war, it was 42.
well, during the war, that's
42.
right. During the war, and after the war, we lived in Manchester, and I went to school. I went to university, and I told my father I wanted to be a sculptor, and he said, this is no way for a Scottish boy to be spending his life. So I decided I'd become an architect. So I went to the university and I was interviewed by the professor. Then he said that I looked a bit like a long-haired poet, not an architect. He said, but he was Scottish, and he said in this Scottish accent, "But you can draw." Possibly, so he said, okay. So I was allowed into the university, and for 6 years I became trained to be an architect. After that, I left and went to work in London in a very small office, about half the size of this space here. There were 4 assistants like me and 2 partners in the other office. One was an Austrian, very fiery man, and 1 Englishman, very urbane. And everything was lovely until you could hear them talking loudly, and they'd come out putting their coats on, and they said, "My partner and I are going out for coffee." And we always knew that they were going out to have a battle, a row. They were going to argue. Anyway, I had a very good time there, and then one night I was going to this coffee bar, and these 2 girls who didn't have the money to buy any coffee. So I said, may I buy you a coffee, young ladies? They said, "Oh yes, please, we have no money." And so one of them, none other than this young woman sitting here.
Not so young.
And so having bought her the coffee, she felt that she was obliged to... Exactly. She said, "I must marry you now, you bought the coffee." Anyway,
Listen, that's only when you're about 20 odd. You've got 80 years yet to go. How long are we going to be here?
She was only barely 19 years of age at this time. When I sent a letter to her father in America, they'd gone off and left this poor child on her own, and I was there.
Took advantage.
Said, "You cannot marry my daughter." And we said, "I'm terribly sorry." I said, "I've already decided to do this." Anyway, he was very angry, and he refused to come to the wedding. But at the last moment, he turned up with a big crate of whiskey. He thought that as I was Scottish, this would be appropriate for the wedding. In fact, all my Scottish relatives came to London, and they drank all the whiskey. And we went off to a honeymoon at Rugby railway station. Hotel. And after that, we had to flee the country because I'd been deferred from the army for 7 years, and I was to go to be a soldier. But I couldn't leave this young woman on her own, newly married. So we decided to flee the country. We left and went to Canada and lived there for 6 years.
And we had Nicholas.
And there was born Nicholas and Julia. Wonderful place.
In Montreal.
We had a good time in Canada, except that it was very cold in the winter.
Freezing
It was really cold.
That winter was particularly cold.
We had a good. We were involved in the theatre and all kinds of lovely exploits there. And I got sent for 1 year by my boss to Toronto. I was living in Montreal. And we lived in a big apartment block for the first time. Very nice accommodation provided by the company. Nicholas was about this high, but this apartment had a big lift. Nicholas would get in this lift and press all the buttons, and most of the day he was lost. We were running out.
Where's Nicholas? Oh.
Anyway, we came back from Canada after 6 years. I got a letter from the Queen saying that my call out from the army had been deemed ineffective, and I didn't have to go and fight the Queen's battles anymore. So we came back to England, and I got a job working for the town hall in Manchester, and didn't like that much. So I went to work for these other architects. And
you're about 30 now, Joe.
I'm 30 now.
Years to go until you're 80.
Well, I was an assistant to this partner there, and he was designing this church, and it was going on very nicely. And he and I had to go and see the bishop about the church, and the bishop looked at the church plans and said, to my boss, he said, "Where's the church hall?" I see no church hall, he said. "It's only a church. You're supposed to have a church hall." He said, "Well, my lord," he said, "I haven't done the church hall." He said, "Well, you're fired." He was sacked from the job. And the bishop's secretary phoned me up and said, "Would you like to design this church?" And I said, "Well, very well, yes I will." So I designed a church with a hall underneath, and the bishop said, "Thank you very much, beautiful church." And this was a Roman Catholic church. And after that, I was approached by some Anglican church people who wanted a church as well. After that, I designed a synagogue, and then what they didn't know was that I had no religion whatever.
The Jewish people thought he was Jewish, the Catholics thought he was Catholic, Protestants, Protestant.
So my career was then, after that, I decided I better start working on my own. So I started in practice by myself, and with another partner, and from then on, we worked hard. We had bad years, we were starving to death. Good years, we were buying Ferraris, and it was all very, very nice. And finally, they just have had about enough money in the kitty to pay my share of the business. And so I retired and came to Italy, because we'd been travelling in Italy for many years before coming here. And Alison and Carlo were alive. When Alison and Carlo was alive, and Alison, they lent us their cars. We travelled everywhere.
Brilliant.
And we had lovely times. So we knew Italy very well before I retired. And since we've been here, we have really enjoyed it. But really, we owe all this to Ollie and Julia, whose idea it was to come and live here. They have kindly given us a small baraka in the garden. Providing we do first chickens.
No, I do first chickens.
Actually, Primo does first chicken.
Gallini.
So what I have to say is that we really we have enjoyed being in Italy so much, and we have made some very good friends here.
All our friends here.
Allora, ringraziamenti speciali ai nostri amici dell'Ambaradam. Noi hanno molto benvenuti a Bella Tarquinia. Nostre serate venerdì sono momenti dei settimane con cucina eccezionale da Nonna Tella.
Sì.
E la squadra molto affettuoso. La ringrazio molto. Thank you very much for not throwing buns at me.
I think from all of us we are privileged, yes, to be here.
And a very, very
happy birthday, Joe.
Sento di questi giorni.
Happy birthday.
another glass of
Yeah, a couple of weeks.